Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode. This is our 1417 episodes. We will discuss on global peace. We have our world famous speaker, Madam Ali Rice, Dr. Talib Raphael, Professor Philip, and Professor Ulrich Betts. Am I right? So first, I want to give chance our new speaker, Professor Ulrich Betts. What are the root cause of the global conflict today, and how can we address them through peaceful means? Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm one of my roles is I'm also the chairman of the Future Insight Association. The Future Insight Association is a non-profit association that is organizing international conferences such as the Curious Future Insight Conference. And as you say, we are living in a time of increased rising conflict. And we started our Curious Future Insight Conference back in 2018. It was started at the occasion of the 350 years anniversary of MAG, KGaA Darmstadt, Germany, as the world's oldest pharmaceutical and chemical company. And at that time in 2018, everybody was still expecting a peaceful world to come. And when preparing and launching that special celebrations, we also launched the so-called Darmstadt Science Declaration, which is called also Make Science Not War. And Darmstadt, as some of you might know, is a city that has been completely destroyed during World War II. There was just one building left, one or two buildings left. All the rest was completely destroyed. And we launched this Make Science Not War declaration, which, by the way, everybody is cordially invited to sign. It's a global call to invest the scarce resources of humanity for further advancements in science and technology, so to solve the root causes of the problems rather than putting it in more military and weapons and war, as we are increasingly seeing today. So people can sign it at makesciencenotwar.com, and I'm notwar.org, and I'm happy to see many signatures. But coming back to your questions, what are the root causes? Many analysts were discussing about it. If you ask me, I think one key reason is that the last people that survived to see World War II are dying. And the voice that has been strong over the decades to warn humanity from the devastating effects of a war, they are getting weaker and they are disappearing because these people are just dying away. And if you look back in the history, then there's always a re-emergence of war and conflict if the people that fight for peace, because they have seen the devastating effects of wars, if their voice disappears. And I think this is the root cause of what we are seeing today.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Fred, my next question for you: how can international institutions like the United Nations be reformed to better promote and enforce global peace? We have our UNWTO Secretary General in our session, so hopefully this question will be very crucial for our audience. Professor Fred.
Yeah, as we all know, the United Nations and particularly the Security Council was formed after World War II, but the world has further evolved since then, and we have other countries that are getting more and more important and powerful. So it seems that the composition is not anymore up to date and not reflecting the weight of different countries today anymore. So some modernization would definitely be required. But at the same time, if you have countries that are starting wars, basically, that are sitting there and having a veto right, even this reform that I mentioned wouldn't make a big difference. I mean, ideally, the UN should have options to enforce peace and to get sanctions or even troops under their command, which is like a global police. So in the end, I think humanity has now advanced to a stage where without a world government, we won't be able to survive.
Thank you. Professor Fred, what you want to discuss about this question? How can international institutions like the United Nations be reformed to better promote and enforce global peace?
Well, this week's Economist magazine featured a column by Ban Ki-moon. He co-authored it. I can't recall who the co-author was, but it was bemoaning the fact that that the United Nations has been weakened. It cited a founding director general of the UN that said that the success of that organization completely relies on the goodwill of the member organizations. And the column goes on to explain how easy it is these days for authoritarian leaders, of which there are such folks in several countries now, to subvert the UN process and to divide the will of the smaller countries that comprise the UN, not to mention the veto power of the Security Council. So the UN has a long way to go to recovery. Would you like me to share the other thoughts about global peace at this time?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Shortly after I left Asia and moved here to New Mexico, the Peace Engineering Initiative was started by Ramiro Jordan, the Associate Dean of the Engineering School at University of New Mexico. He grew up in very violent circumstances in Bolivia, and is, in addition to his engineering studies, he's very devoted to the idea that engineers can contribute to peace. So we published a special issue of this prestigious journal that I had the honor of editing for many years. Dr. Betts has published in this journal as well. And it was a special issue on peace engineering. And to me, the big points to emerge from it was that an engineer can invent a device that is 100% oriented to peaceful application. But there is always someone from a government agency, a terrorist organization, who can find a way to weaponize that invention. So from the perspective of invention, I think the peace engineering idea has some built-in contradictions. However, when we conceive of peace engineering in the sense of preparing young engineers for their careers, the inclusion of some liberal arts and social science courses in the engineering curriculum can prepare engineering graduates to work in employment situations that are not part of the military-industrial complex. Because I think the biggest fraction of engineering graduates today do go to work for defense companies, and so on. So I think the big contribution of the peace engineering movement can be to prepare engineering grads for alternate employment tracks. The second thing that comes to my mind in the context of global peace is this this art that I've been pursuing and teaching for 50 years now. I've written a couple of books about it. And the founder of this Japanese martial art was the fellow who had been a very rabid Japanese nationalist and, advocate of the Japanese expansionism in the World War II years. And after that, reformed himself and reformed the martial art he was teaching to be one that was oriented to reconciliation rather than beating the crap out of an opponent. I think the philosophy of this martial art is both very subtle and very highly contributory toward peace, because it highlights the rather difficult concept that you cannot frame a binary distinction that you're either a warmonger or you're a pacifist, because an alternate definition of pacifist, and is somewhat cynical, is victim. Okay? So how can you be an advocate for peace without making yourself a passive victim? And this is the balance that we strive for in Aikido. And the concepts are an earlier book of mine from 20-some years ago. The concepts are transferable. They're applicable to business and management context as well. The third thing I want to mention is that last week I took a big risk, I think, by posting a column on LinkedIn about how I saw the history of the Middle East leading to the difficult and tragic situation that it faces today. Oddly enough, most of the reaction to that column has been from Iran. They mostly approve of my perspective, although they quibble about some details. But the thrusts of this were first that we need to understand the nuances of the frames that each participant is coming from. We need to separate the feelings and aspirations of each country's leaders from its people, okay? Because fewer than half of Americans support what Mr. Trump does. Ordinary Iranians want to be friends with America, but Iran's leaders are weaponizing Islam just for purposes of staying in power. There's Islamophobia in the United States, but strangely enough, most of the driver behind the pro-Israel stance of the government here comes from evangelical Christians who believe that when Jews take control of Israel again, Jesus will return. So on the one hand, you have Americans who think that, who have a religious feeling that drives their voting behavior about Middle Eastern issues. And they fear Islam, but and at the same time, while they have some anti-Semitic feelings about Jews in the United States, they have no problem with Jews who are safely far away in their own country. It's very contradictory, and we have to understand the nuances of it. In Israel, there's a prime minister who needs to stay in power because otherwise he'd be criminally indicted. Maybe he's already been indicted, but would stand trial. Whereas ordinary Israelis just want a safe place to live. So, if one of these countries, one of these parties confronts the other on purely military terms or purely political terms, they're missing the chance to engage all the aspects of the other country's conceptual frame. And then there's the matter of anger. I had one response to this column that was just, this is drivel. And, not a very helpful comment, but it was given by somebody who was obviously raised to believe that anger and dismissiveness is the universal answer to any challenge, regardless of the logic of that challenge. At one point some years ago, I tried to access the Armed Conflict Database. Such a database exists. I think the subscription to it is rather expensive, but it should be a rich data source for those of us who are inclined to want to analyze this question of conflict in a research scientific manner. Okay, I think that's all for now. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Paul, can you hear me? Paul?
I can.
Okay, we cannot see you. Okay, thank you. He is a media person, long time he has contribution for global peace. Mr. Paul, what peace mean to you and how your media can contribute for global peace?
Okay. Well, first of all, I was very interested in Fred, what you've put together there. With media, I think that all media should have the Surgeon General's warning that this could be hazardous to your health. And I think probably every product should say the same thing, whether it's a peace product or any kind of, because a stick and or a bar or anything can be hit on somebody's head. So this could be very hazardous to your health, all products. So in the sense of peace, today is actually an anniversary of our Good News broadcast. And I think that's July 4th, 1998. We started 7 years before YouTube with other servers promoting the good in the world. I think a lot of what we're talking about, I know Sharif and Holmes and everyone, are talking about positive thinking, surrounding yourself with positive people like the Reverend Norman Vincent Peale, The Art of Positive Thinking. And I think it's not, as it always ends up being, is education. If you teach people to be kind and loving and caring, and if people can somehow come from families like that or have friends like that, you all potentially have the opportunity to realize who the bully is. and bullies are scary because a bully can hurt you, and then people are so afraid they stick by the bully. And it's the same thing like in a sandbox that we all grow up in. There's one or two people that are just plain old insecure. I like to use the word insecure enough to become a bully. So our thought here is that, there was a show called Damn Yankees. We try to accentuate the positive, minimize the negative, upbeat, not beat up. We've been creating a concert in Times Square for 23 years, the International Day of Peace. There actually is a day that the United Nations, 193 countries agreed to peace, which actually was created in 1984, not in 2002. Since we've been doing it, got reinvigorated in 2002. So a peace day has been around with 193 countries, many of which, including America, is not peaceful. Whether it's domestic violence or killing in the streets or other silly, crazy, unfortunate situations. So, I just think that the more we emphasize positive life, minimize the violence in our media, the sensational, this is really the way, because people don't understand what media is all about. Actually, I didn't understand. I got a master's degree, and the Jesuit priest taught me at Fairfield, this is the opinion of the management of the New York Times. And so what do you mean? Isn't this what it is? And then there's a museum called Newseum in Washington, D.C. And if you go into that museum, I haven't been there in some years, I think it's still there. They put out the front page of 50 newspapers, and the same story has a different bent, a different thought of all 50 a newspaper. So, it's a shame. The courses that we probably should be taught in high school or even elementary school. Understanding media, how to raise a family, what is a family. Things that are practical that would help us move our lives in a more positive way. Somehow seem trite, I guess. I don't know what else to say, but I think that's all I'll say. So our event coming up in September, which we're focused on, if you know any people who would like to either volunteer, who could donate to our nonprofit. It's a very expensive show, 5-hour live in Times Square. Big stage, big crew, partners with Earth Day. It's called the International Day of Peace. And in New York City, Climate Week kickoffs. We're going to actually try to pause the peace, World for Peace at 12 noon is the request by the United Nations for a ceasefire, acts of peace on the 21st of September. Our event's going to start on the 19th in the City Hall with the mayor and borough president to hopefully actually pause New York City. We can pause New York City's in essence, schools, police, and other administrative areas of which we have 17 billion employees. No, and $80 trillion budget. If we could put a hit on the city, no, I don't mean a hit. All right, put a love bud into the city of New York. I think with all the media out of New York, if we can get some enthusiasm. 193 countries raised their hand unanimously, a moment of silence for peace. If we could do a moment of silence, Ringo Starr virtually asking for a moment of silence and peace, and we can make love, not war, the old hippie-ish kind of thing, but not hippie-ish. That's it. It's called pausetheworldforpeace.org or Peace Day Party. Actually, I want to throw a party for the world and just hug and hopefully put down the guns and just make friends. All right, I'm done.
Thank you. Madam Ali Weiss, you are one and only woman leader in our discussion. So how women can play important role for global peace?
Okay, well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, one of the defining projects that I did was called Flow. And it was basically an animation that was made by children that were all under 5. And they basically researched their own animal in the world. They used Google Earth. They panned from their school. And then they did their own research. And the only thing that didn't happen in the film was that predators didn't eat prey. And there was no blood and no gore. But basically, For the Love of the World has become a bit of a mission and a vision for me. And essentially, the key thing is that it celebrates the beauty and the fragility of the natural world and the kind of wider world as well. So for me, I think I was chosen as social entrepreneur in 2013 because of the way that I'd led creative learning programs, because essentially there were lots of children that were becoming disengaged in British schools, because the thing is that the world's become so visually stimulating, and there's an argument to say that the education system hasn't fundamentally changed. So essentially, one of the key things that I always remember from Roger James Hamilton, who's the futurist behind Genius U, is that there's a distribution and problem in the world, and there's enough food, there's enough resources, there's enough money. But the distribution of that isn't, it needs to be fair. And I think even kind of access to land and access to opportunity, all of those things are key to making everybody have a happy, fulfilled life. So essentially for me, I think it all starts locally. So essentially community is really important and people need to look out for each other. So, if people need support, neighbours, where we live in a small kind of cul-de-sac. So it's a tiny lane in the middle of the Cotswolds. We're surrounded by countryside. We've got older neighbours that are in their 80s and we look out for them. They look out for us, so essentially it starts kind of locally, but there's kind of also a global reach as well. And I do think that, that that our experience of children dictates a lot about how we feel about ourselves and how we feel and believe we can go on and achieve. And essentially, the education system really fundamentally either supports our children or actually, it actually fails them. And there's some people, in England, two of the most well-known social entrepreneurs are Jamie Oliver and Branson, and both of them were dyslexic and were failed in school, but had the motivation and the skills and the genius to make something happen. So I think sometimes we actually learn to overcome the challenges we have, and kind of where the wound is where the gift is. So essentially, I think, there's lots of things, but essentially for me, the one thing that's really important, my mum was a teacher and a head teacher. Education for her was the be all and end all of everything. But the fundamental thing in our family was there was love and compassion. And I think the thing is, that's where it needs to start. So for the love of the world really is about coming from a place that's heart-centered and supportive. And also that we shouldn't be in competition with each other. We should actually be supporting one another so that we can all achieve our greatness, and our gifts and talents are there for a reason. So I've got I've got a 20-year-old son who's not a teenager anymore, and I've got an almost 18-year-old daughter. And they flourish because they're creative, they're motivated, they're committed, and they use their skills and talents. And all the work that I've done over 30 years in education, that, the people that are happy and love what they do use those skills and talents to make a difference. And I think the thing is, there has to be like purpose and passion behind what you do. And essentially, and for the wider world, I think that as a people, in the time that I've been on social networks, people have power, and essentially people should have enough opinion and strength to actually stop the things that are wrong in the world. And essentially, I think the problem is that there's an elite that kind of are a force beyond everybody else. And most people are either not conscious of what's going on or turn their back because they don't think they can do anything. And it's really the individuals that really speak up and realize that there's something wrong and it's not okay that kind of make fundamental changes. So I think the thing is that, it's kind of down to us to make changes and not have apathy, because the thing is that everybody's got power and intention, and and if not for us, for our children and the children that come after us. And one of the things that I was going to mention actually is that one of the people that always has made an impact on me was David Suzuki, and he was a genetic scientist that runs a foundation. And one of the things that I signed years and years ago was his interconnectedness of things. And that interconnection is about the natural world. And, we all rely on the natural world, and it's, the clean air and water and food and, and the biodiversity, so I think that kind of interconnectedness is really important. And it goes for human life and, wildlife and everything in between. So I think the thing is that sharing resources, embracing diversity, understanding each other, and realizing that it's okay to have different opinions, and kind of collaborating, co-creating things and working in partnership are all the things that are going to get us to a stage when there's more peace. And it's because you don't have to argue to be right, you just need to embrace. And I think that's what forums like this are about. But you need to come from a place when you're not trying to to kind of kill someone's idea or close that, So I think it's much more important to embrace the thoughts and feelings of everybody. So, yeah. And I do think that for me, that if there were more women in power, there'd be less destruction. Because I think it's that women are naturally quite creative and tend to, so when I work with children, boys tend to disassemble stuff and take things apart and then put them together. But girls tend to order things and kind of, they tend not to take stuff apart as it is. So so that's my first thoughts. So for the love of the world is really, that mission and vision of doing things from love. If everybody did that, we'd probably be in a better place.
Thank you, Dr. Talib Raphael. Long time you work as a UNWTO Secretary General. So what's your view? There are a lot of issues come from our speakers.
Especially the last three speakers. Yeah, am I heard okay? Am I heard okay? I'm heard. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. The last three speakers. I've come from Jordan. I live in Jordan now. And I have been studying. I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer, an architect. I studied in the School of Engineering. And that's how I became an engineer. But that doesn't make me a different person from what I try to be. All of you, especially the speakers. I believe completely in the power of people that are now denied their power, denied anything because of Trump, the US president. Sorry to say this. Americans are that, but I think Trump is a crazy man. What he did in the Middle East was considered by our people to be a crazy act. Our people are much more mature than many people who think about them. They are, you'll see them when you come, Sharif, the Jordanians are very, very accurate people. And they don't like Trump. Unfortunately, he was the person that was brought to power by your people, by the Americans. Sorry to say this, but the Americans are to blame about him. 3 points that Philip wrote up, very important points. So are the last two speakers. I stand here ready to answer any question you may have on the Middle East, on Trump, on the issue of Iran, making the Iranian peace. You know, he's trying to get a Nobel Prize in peace, but he won't do that, won't be able to achieve that. Sorry to say this. I will better stop at point. I don't want to continue anymore. I'm ready to answer your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ulrich. I have very specific question for you. What role can education play in fostering a culture of peace and non-violence across generations? I think you already shared, you had your conference, Curious 2027, Future Insight Conference. If you discuss about your conference and your educational initiative, that will be valuable for us.
Yeah, I think education is very, very important because it also creates an understanding of other cultures, other backgrounds, and helps people not to see the enemy, but to see the potential partner in the other one. And on another level, education, if you take education as the basis of science and the advancement of science, then it's also clear, and I think it's a famous quote from Albert Einstein, I don't know with which weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought again with stones. And the science arises from education, and science actually makes conflict and war also more dangerous. So we must be aware that science itself is a double-edged sword. You can use science for the good and the bad. That's why it's very important to combine science with solid ethics and inspiration or even spirituality in order to form the required moral and ethical background behind it. And I like very much what Ali Rice said, that love is the only thing that can in the end unite people and fight war. And what's very important, if you also look in the history of philosophy, then the question always comes up, can love and ethics, can it be rationalized? And we had decades-long philosophical debates about it. Is it something that comes as an inspiration from a spiritual dimension, or is it something that can be rationalized? But I think history has clearly shown that rational people can be extremely brutal. And if you look at the most devastating wars in the human history, this has all been done by people that were fighting religion at the same time, like Stalin, for example, or also in China during the Cultural Revolution of Mao. So education itself is not enough, but we need to combine education and science with a solid moral religious understanding. And I wrote a book on the topic. It has appeared at Springer. It's called Science and Religion United, the Salvation Machine. And the book explains the origin of science and makes the connection to something that is beyond pure materialism. Because I'm convinced we need to get this guidance on what is morally good and what is moral bad. We need to get it from somewhere else. It's a kind of the final decision. The free will, the question everybody has to ask. In my opinion, it can't be rationalized because killing everybody so you own everything is also rational. So we must be very, very careful. Rational education alone is not enough to preserve peace. We must turn to ethics and religion. So we need a spiritual renaissance. I call this in my book a digital spiritual renaissance. And I'm making the prediction in the book even that the emergence of artificial intelligence will trigger this digital spiritual renaissance because people are seeing the only thing that separates us from the machines is spirituality. The machines can do everything better. They can run faster. They can calculate faster. They remember things better. They can now even write better books and texts. There is nothing left for humanity to differentiate. So we see that spirituality is the key thing, and only that can preserve in the end peace.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Fred, my next question's about definitely climate change. How does climate change threaten global peace, and what cooperative strategies are needed to prevent climate-induced conflict? And you also introduced through Tando these climate leadership programs. It will be valuable for all of the emerging economy like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Middle East, Jordan. So if you share your views about climate change, that will be very valuable for us. Can you unmute, please?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Sharif. Part of our educational sound is to help people to understand the difference between observation and interpretation. And some scientists are not totally good at distinguishing observation from interpretation. For example, if my hand were to shoot toward your head, and you notice that, of course, that's an observation. If you say that's conflict, but I'm attacking you, that is an interpretation, because I may simply be trying to remove a dangerous insect from your hair. So if we are predisposed to interpret things as conflict, I think this is a problem that raises its head in many situations. Now, as for the question that came up on the screen, I think we've discussed this before, that the climate change, migration, mass migration, and war all interact. And we can't solve just one of those three things. Oh, let's throw in pandemics. There's just 3 or 4 things that we cannot solve separately because each one of them causes the other. So you've seen that all the difficulty in Europe, the political controversy in the United States about migration, the violent incidents that have resulted from a lack of tolerance, and from in the United States, the government's overzealous actions in terms of capturing and deporting people whose immigration status is not necessarily illegal, but simply questioned. So the idea of how to understand the interactions among all these things, the interactions that we call highly crisis. This is an urgent educational hurdle, and it's one that we tackle in the Kondo Institute's leadership certificate program. It does incorporate AI to a very great extent. I want to mention another cause of conflict. A cousin of mine has made a really wonderful career for himself as a scriptwriter and producer for the CSI television program. CSI standing for Crime Scene Investigation. Okay, so she, and Molly, she is a woman. All these scripts involve guns, and that's not the only television program that's very heavy on featuring guns in the script. And so Hollywood is, to a great extent, a cause of the problem we're talking about here today. We really need to be able to invent storylines that are gripping without so much violence, and in particular without so much guns. So I agree that more women in leadership roles would be very, very helpful, but it's not because of the and Reverend Paul, you mentioned the Woodstock Festival. I did not attend it, although the following year I went to a similar festival in Wisconsin. But the connection, which is just a whimsical thing. My late father's last girlfriend was the ex-wife of Max Yaskin's brother. And for those of you who are not Americans, in the audience, you remember the song about going down to Yaskin's farm when joining a rock and roll band. That's because the Woodstock Festival, the famous Peace and Love Festival, took place on a farm owned by a fellow named Max Yaskin. Thank you, sir.
No, just
Thank you. Yes, Paul.
I'll just add a couple of funny notes or whatever. Okay, I did the 20th anniversary of Woodstock with Richie Havens. Richie started the Woodstock singing "Freedom," and I ended up doing it here in the city. I had the Great Lawn, but I couldn't raise $700,000 to do it here. Now it's $7 million to do a concert in the Great Lawn, and I gave the land to the Global Citizen organization that has been quite successful. worldwide doing a lot of good things. So that's that. But to talk about, if you don't mind, Sharif, about climate, and one of my friends was Pete Seeger. I don't know if you know his name. He's in the Bob Dylan movie, and Pete Seeger helped clean the Hudson River here with his Clear Water organization. And Pete wrote a song of which we played up at Max Yasker's farm. I'm not a hippie. I'm a conservative guy. I was never a hippie-ish kind of guy. I'm into the peace kind of thing. So he wrote a song, and we've had many, many singers sing it, say, water, not weapons. And so we've promoted the reality of the concern, or the potential concern, of water wars. Okay, with the knowledge of water, and we helped my partner Phil Sowers created World Water Day at the United Nations with Tajikistan. Water, talking about climate concerns, and is, of course, the sustenance of life, and we, even though we have a lot of water on Mother Earth here, right? It's not drinkable. And so if we could put a couple bucks into desalination, which is a big energy user, to create or come up with more, taking the water out of the skies, that would be a good thing. And I just did an Australian thing where people from a local island not far away from Australia, 3/4 of the island, its population has moved to Australia. So the fact is, in Manhattan's an island. And so many places where people live, because people seem to like to live near water. And water is a big, concerning, potentially hazardous and or war-oriented. So part of the climate concern.
I would like to directly comment on that. I think that's a very, very nice example that it's better to put the resources in solving the problems at its root cause rather than on weapons, so rather create more water or better purification technologies. And I would like to share a quote that came up by the scientist Avi Loeb during a discussion at one of the Curious Future Insight conferences. And he said, "War is a zero-sum game. Science is an infinite-sum game." And I think that brings it up very, very nicely.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Ali Rice, you want to add any points?
No, because I think the thing is that, because I spent 10 years working in California, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the mountain water is taken by a pipe all the way down to Southern California, isn't it? So I think that kind of the control of water and resources across the world is fundamental to what happens, and that's fundamentally what we rely on as well. And even we live in the Cotswolds, but the Cotswolds are hills, and one of the other areas that's really close by is called the Malvern Hills. And the Malvern Hills has access to drinkable spring water, but the local people aren't allowed to access it. So I think the thing is there has to be question marks about why the authorities make decisions that they do. And essentially it is so that we can pay for resources, so we don't get free resources for free. And I think the thing is, it's the same as arguably, Tesla, not Elon Musk, but Tesla. That there's ways of getting energy for free, and the thing is, but I think the thing is that people want to make profits, and the thing is that system of constantly profiteering instead of allowing people to have what they need is the problem. And essentially, what's crazy to me is that we've got food mountains in the West, and the EU throws away bananas that don't fit a certain size and shape, but there's people that don't have any food at all in other places in the world. And and the thing is that we're so materialistic in the West as well. Some people don't even consciously even realize that there's so many problems that people are kind of in survival mode. So I think there's also poverty. There's pockets of poverty everywhere in the UK as well, because they're standard of living is so high that some people in the winter have to choose whether they heat their homes or eat. And that's the thing, is because, and I actually have, you know, since 2020, I actually think that if you look at the history, that in 1920, 1820, there's always been a reset, and the resets usually always happened through war. And essentially what's happened that I'm very aware of is the systems are quite broken, so they can't be financially sustainable. The education system, the financial system, you know, even the food system, you know, there isn't. So essentially, I think they deliberately make, you know, like the lockdowns, I think were a deliberate agenda to stop people in their tracks and have control. And the lockdowns, I still think, are going to be the excuse for the fact that those systems were in jeopardy anyway. So, you know, so I think they're, and it's really shocking to me that we've gone through all the lockdowns and now there's wars all over the world. You know, it's you know, in this time and space, you think that humans would know better, wouldn't you? But they obviously don't. So yeah, it's shocking. Yeah, really shocking to me.
Thank you, Dr. Talib. Dr. Talib.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sharif. Thank you for it. Regarding climate change, the developing countries are they're not producing. That's for sure. Something that can total. We should talking to people currently developed world. Developing.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Professor Ulrich, we have next question for technology. How might emerging technologies such as AI and drone be used both as a tools of peace and tools of war?
I mean, it comes back to the dichotomy that I elaborated on in my previous answer. So technology is always neutral. You can use it in both ways, and AI certainly has a chance to empower further and to leverage further the playing field, because it can be used by more or less everybody in the world can log into ChatGPT and use these bots. It's an enormous empowerment of humanity. So everybody basically has 100, 200 professors at their fingertips where you can ask questions about everything. It's incredible, completely unprecedented in the history of humanity. With drones and AI, and if you combine robotics and AI, then obviously we are getting into a very, very dangerous area. The robots might decide to kill somebody or to initiate destruction without any human being even involved. So the algorithms make the decision about life and death. And I think that is really very, very dangerous. And I think many world leaders have warned about that. I think it will be a key question how that can be controlled in the future, because it's in the global arms race, it's a speed question. You know, if you have one country that has installed this artificial intelligence guided drones or other weapons, they are much faster versus other countries where you still have humans in the loop. I don't have a solution for the problem, but I think it's a very, very big threat that is currently brewing there.
Thank you. Professor Fred, my next question about the engagement of grassroots level. What is the role of youth and the grassroots movement in promoting sustainable peace in divided societies?
One reason that we target this certificate in climate leadership to fourth year university students, graduate students, recent graduates, young employees is because it's the young generation that enunciates the greatest amount of concern about climate change. The older folks engage in denial, or they already are at an age where they have financial incentives for denying climate change or being financially wrapped up in the what's the word? The established technologies rather than the green ones. You know, the incumbent technologies is the word that I'm looking for. So that all ties in, of course, with our discussion of education. They're the ones who are at the age where they're still engaged in educational activities. And we would want engineering students, harking back to the talk about peace engineering, to understand the consequences of what they're inventing. As Dr. Betts says, it's all neutral, but we do need to have them educated in technology assessments so that they and we as a society can try to understand in advance what are the pluses and minuses in terms of the potential applications of these technologies, and feed that information into the policy formation process. Now, I think everybody knows that Isaac Asimov had his 3 rules of robotics, and primary of which was that robots are not allowed to hurt people. But poor Isaac Asimov is spinning in his grave right now, because once robots and AI actually did come onto the scene in a cost-effective manner, who was the first to grab onto them? The military for weapons. So things have not turned out the way Asimov thought. People still talk about robots in the plural. There was a very telling phrase, I forget who originated it. There is only one robot. Because we can use AI and robots as pretty much synonymously, because robots are the mobile instantiations of AI, and they all talk to each other. And we know that large language models from different companies have learned to talk to each other. So there is one, you might say, one global artificial mind. And who, of course, we can all use it, as Dr. Betts said, but who controls it? This is the source of much of the discussion we've had in other video casts in this series, and a lot of the political difficulty right now with Mr. Musk and Mr. Kyle and all the tech firms. So, yeah, there's only one robot, and we have to think of what are the consequences of that.
Thank you, Professor. Mr. Paul, my last question for this round. How can cultural and religious diversity be harnessed as a strength rather than a source of divisions in peace building effort?
Well, I think, from my observation here, I'm part of the faith-based community here in New York, which also extends to maybe 300 plus faith-based people throughout the United States, which we meet regularly. Actually, the mayor here is very religious, I'll say, of spirituality, and has a whole team involved with spirituality here in the city of New York. Once again, it's the people who utilize religion as a I'll put it in quotes, as an excuse to cause harm. Obviously, do not understand their religion, because I guess I believe they, it's not what their religion stated. I don't believe. From my interfaith seminary 2-year study from all the different religions, I don't believe that the interpretations of what I was taught from Imam Faisal or from the Rabbi who's Geldorf or the priests or the Buddhists or all the people, no one said that kill your neighbor. So I just think it's unfortunate, and I think it's the reality of humanity. There's a few bullies, a couple people who would, in the name of, cause some harm. So how do we overcome that? There's hundreds of organizations doing that specific thing. Interfaith community outreach. It's just a matter of, once again, a lot of this stuff would be wonderful if more people realize that there's lots and millions of people that are just involved with doing nice things in this world. I think it goes back to the media, Fred was talking about. It goes back to lots of things that everybody is speaking about here. We got the 6 do-gooders on this phone call. That's the bottom line. We need 6 billion do-gooders just to say, I took my kid to watch a ballet show. We just need the reality of our Homo sapienness. That's it. It's religion is just in my mind. I'm Jewish by birth, and I'm I'm interfaith, but I believe in humanity is my show. So that's it. The people just should. I don't believe in countries either. I'm a John Lennonist. This is my card. This is from the moon. No boundaries, no borders, no colors. We just we're in it together. So that's it's a peace cry.
Thank you. Dr. Talib, you are a very experienced politician. Recently, we are observing many tensions in Asia, like Iran and Israel problem, Palestine and Israel problems, India and Pakistan problems. Bangladesh also have political instabilities and many more things. USA new government comes and they have new visions, especially this populism like increase around the world. So what's your thoughts? What your advice for these global communities for global peace, Dr. Talib?
Global peace can only be achieved through and the real essence of the problem. For example, the Middle East, we have the problem with and Jews. I'm sorry to say that, not just the Jews, it's the Israelis. But the point is that we can't live with that for long. Can't do that. I think that the world peace can be achieved only by letting people interact with people and create better words. That's the only way to do it. And I have been working in Buddhism for a long period of time. I believe that Buddhism have a little the way people understand each other, and they start taking down the stereotype of people. That's what I say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali? Yeah, thank you. Ali? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my thoughts are that when I was 21, I went to work in the States, and I used to run arts and outdoor programs in the middle of the wilderness. And I was working with lots of international people, one of my best friends actually is still one of my best friends to this day, and she was from Russia, and another one was from Nairobi. And essentially what was crazy is that we would never have met one another unless we were working together at the same residential camp. And essentially both of them opened my eyes to completely new experiences and completely diverse ideas of what happened when they were growing up, how their culture was. And that's, to this day, I think the thing is that unless you travel and you understand that everybody's experience is different and unique, that you don't really understand the world. And you also, I don't think you really appreciate what you have in your own country until you travel abroad and then come back. So I think the thing is, and essentially, so my best friend is still in Russia. She's a professor of English at Moscow University. She's got 2 sons, and one of them is abroad and training, so he's doing a degree over in the Netherlands. But if he was at home, he'd be conscripted to fight. And I've had conversations, and she said that she doesn't want to lose her sons to war. And the thing is, there are no winners in war. So essentially, I think the thing is, if we come from a place of love and compassion and understanding, and kind of work to create kind of a way of working so everybody wins, and that it's the same as, you know. I think profit's not the one and only thing. I think planet, people, you know, it's all of those things. It has to be a win-win for all of those things if we make any decisions. I don't think you should manufacture things that either don't get recycled or don't biodegrade. And I'm a real purist in the fact that we need to do things differently. We shouldn't have loads of junk put in our food and our drinks, and and there's a level of consciousness that's missing, because there's no regulation in what's going on. And essentially, fundamentally, sometimes, one of the things that I loved about being in Malaysia is that they were the most amazing people that were happy. They lived in an incredible place. They had great food. And I got to know the nature specialist at a 5-star hotel that I worked at. And what was really cool was that when they needed a house in their community, the whole community got together to build it. And I think the thing is that that's what's incredibly inspiring. There was no planning, or there was no application or kind of authority to stop you doing what you needed to do. And essentially, I think in the Western world, everything's gone a bit crazy. So there are kind of lines and boundaries and restrictions, and so that there's a lot to learn from traveling and from meeting new people. And so for me, it always is about kind of coming from a heart-centered place and trying to make a difference in service, so that you use you use your gifts and talents to make a difference to the world. And if everyone had that kind of mission to do something, then I think the world would be a better place.
Thank you. Professor Fred, what's your closing remarks for today's session? Can you unmute, please?
Once again, I think we need to understand from what frame your interlocutor is speaking from. People speak from the personal frame, the organizational frame, the religious frame. And if I'm talking to you from the personal frame, and you're talking from the political frame, we're going to conversation is going to pass right by each other without achieving any understanding. When I spoke about that there's only one robot, I want to connect that to the fact that we need to examine our own deep psychology, where deep history is. In Greek stories, people made pilgrimages to Delphi to ask a question of artificial intelligence of that age. But now, and in most science fiction that I read when I was a youngster, you had to make a pilgrimage to the world's primary city in order to ask a smart machine a question. Now you don't have to do that. In very deep history, before Christianity and Judaism and Islam, fear was a survival mechanism. Fear, insecurity, and the resulting aggressiveness is what helped your family or your tribe to survive. And some of that is still inside us. We need to face that and understand when it's helpful in the modern day, in the present day, and when it is, in most cases, not helpful. Thank you. That's my closing point.
Thank you, Professor. Uh, Professor Ulrich, what's your closing remarks for today's session?
Yeah, I think in the end one should stay optimistic. There have been ups and downs in human history, but overall the trajectory of progression was clearly going upwards, so getting better. And I think if we take also the combined teachings of all world religions, which are actually almost identical when it comes to ethical moral behavior, the rules are very, very similar. I think we should all be positive and if the good people, so to speak, talk and share their voice and inspire others, then light and good will win. So don't be too frustrated or too negative.
Thank you. Mr. Paul, what's your closing remarks for today?
A lot of good thoughts here being shared. Thank you. It's a big honor to get an opportunity to speak with you all. I guess the meek will inherit the world. No, wait, the meek have already inherited the world. It needs some organization. You know, people who don't want to fight wars, people that don't want to see violence. Somehow, worldwide, I don't know if the United Nations is the place, but some place has to become the place. And I actually really believe there needs to be some leadership in our world for peaceful acts. I know for many years we've tried, Dennis Kucinich, Marianne Williamson, for example, have tried to get a peace cabinet position here in America, in violent America. And so, you know, it's a struggle. It's a struggle because the word peace is not an easy word. I'm dealing with it for 23 years, and it's very hard. I've had, you know, getting, you know, people to be part of it, to be, what does that mean, peace? So I don't know, maybe there's a better world, a better concept for getting more people together to do good. And I think and I know because I'm in the Good News broadcast, I've done thousands of shows, and I know billions are doing good things, you know, and it's just a little few that aren't, but that cause real havoc, you know. So just got to accentuate the positive. I wish we had more positive media that at least started there saying, you know, 10,000 flights took off. We did have 2 problems, though. I don't know. It's a concern, but it's all good, and you're all good ones. And thank you, Sharif, for including me.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Talib, what's your closing remarks for today?
Well, say that we need to be optimistic. Again, can't live without optimism. I agree completely with you on this. But being optimistic is one thing, and that the role of the United Nations and world leader is another. Because the United Nations, as it stands now, not an organization, can produce any good security controlled by the 5 big powers of the world. And a Security Council actually dictates things. So the United Nations is a very important organization. I agree with you. I think it's played a bigger good role nowadays. It's still not a very effective organization because it doesn't include itself in the real problems of the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sharif, including.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tani. Ali Rice, what's your closing remarks for today?
So I think the thing is that you need to. Well, I do a lot of yoga and have done since I was about 14. And I think the thing is that the peace, we generate our peace and our light and our compassion from being grounded and inwardly serene. And essentially, I think the thing is that I think the way that the culture works in the Western world, and obviously I live in England, is that there's a constant pressure to better yourself, and then it makes other people feel not worthy, and there's also a social class divide as well. And I think the thing is that we all matter wherever we are in the world, and essentially we need to actually harness our power and realize how much creative power we have to change our own circumstances and impact others. And I think, and everyone's got that ability to do it. And if you're an artist like me, I think the thing is that you don't realize that the creative power is within us all, and we all create our reality. And I do think that the news tends to render fear, and most news on the the news channel that we watch, it is predominantly bad. So I think the thing is that good news channels and choosing your friends and your colleagues and the people you work with wisely is really important. And also, the most fundamental thing that you ever do is be a parent and nurture your children to love the world and be in awe of it. And I think the thing is that it fundamentally comes back down to love. So you can't go wrong if you're.
Thank you, everyone. It's an excellent discussion in terms of global peace, which is very important right now. We have a lot of tensions around the world. Peace is important, but I'm very much optimistic when I see Professor Fred, Professor Ulrich, Paul, Talib Rafal, Ali Rice, and all of you have good initiative for global peace. Everyone has some good things. So World Talent Economic Forum, that is our objective. We want to bring all of the good people together. We want to go for positive thoughts, positive initiative, and by this way, we can make a bridge in between global north and global south. And that is the way we can solve many complex problems together. So thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible with the government agency, corporation, and academia. Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Sharif.